They mocked humanity as weak, fragile, and unworthy of the stars. But when a human touched the armor of forgotten legends, the galaxy itself remembered the truth. Earth had never been ordinary. And now, with ancient power awakened, humanity would rise as the guardian race once more. The mockery and awakening Captain Maya Rodriguez adjusted her formal Earth Federation uniform as the transport shuttle approached the massive Zephyrian diplomatic station. Through the viewport, she could see the elegant crystalline structure floating majestically in space, its surfaces gleaming with technological marvels that made Earth's best ships look like primitive metal boxes. She had been chosen to represent humanity in these crucial peace negotiations, partly because of her military background and partly because she was one of the few humans who could maintain diplomatic composure when faced with alien arrogance. The Zephyrian Empire controlled nearly a quarter of the known galaxy, their advanced civilization spanning thousands of worlds. Their technology was so far beyond Earth's that they considered humans barely more intelligent than the primitive creatures they kept in their zoos. Maya knew this attitude well. She had encountered it during the First Contact Protocols 3 years ago when Zephyrian scouts had dismissed Earth as insignificant and barely worthy of their attention. As the shuttle docked, Maya took a deep breath. The negotiations ahead would determine whether humanity would be granted protected status under Zephyrian law, or simply ignored until they eventually destroyed themselves, as the Zephyrians expected all primitive species to do. She stepped off the shuttle with confidence, her dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun, her brown eyes alert and determined. The reception committee was led by Princess Kira Zephys, third in line to the Zephyrian throne. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her pale blue skin seeming to glow with an inner light. Her silver hair flowed like liquid metal past her shoulders, and her large violet eyes held the kind of ancient wisdom that came from a species that had mastered faster than light travel when humans were still discovering fire. She wore flowing robes of deep purple that seemed to shift and change color as she moved, clearly made from some advanced material that Earth couldn't even imagine creating. "Captain Rodriguez," Princess Kira said, her voice melodious but carrying an unmistakable note of condescension. "Welcome to our station. I trust your primitive vessel managed the journey without exploding." Maya smiled politely, though she felt her jaw tighten slightly. "Thank you for the welcome, Your Highness. I'm honored to represent Earth in these discussions." Princess Kira gestured for Maya to follow her through corridors that seemed to be made of living light. The walls pulsed gently with energy, and the floor felt like walking on solid crystal that somehow provided perfect traction. Everything around them spoke of a civilization that had long ago transcended the crude materials and techniques that humans still relied upon. "I must admit I find it curious that your species sent a military officer for diplomatic talks," Princess Kira continued as they walked. "Though I suppose when one's entire technological advancement spans barely a few centuries, the distinction between soldier and diplomat becomes rather meaningless. We believe that understanding comes through many perspectives," Maya replied carefully. "My military experience helps me understand the security concerns that often complicate diplomatic relations." Princess Kira laughed, a sound like crystal, bells chiming. "Security concerns? Captain, your species has barely managed to leave your home system. What could you possibly understand about galactic security? Your weapons are chemical explosives and metal projectiles. Your fastest ships take months to travel distances our children cross in hours. You are like insects trying to negotiate with gods." Maya felt her patience beginning to wear thin, but she maintained her composure. This was exactly the kind of attitude she had been warned about. The Zephyrians weren't deliberately cruel. They simply couldn't conceive of any species being their equal. To them, humanity was a curiosity at best, a potential pest at worst. They entered a vast chamber filled with floating platforms connected by bridges of solid light. In the center, a massive conference table made of what appeared to be crystallized starlight awaited them. Several other Zephyrian dignitaries were present, all regarding Maya with the same mixture of curiosity and barely concealed amusement. "Before we begin our talks," Princess Kira announced, Perhaps our human guest would enjoy a tour of our cultural vault. It might help her understand the vast gulf between our civilizations. Maya sensed a trap, but nodded graciously. I would be honored to learn more about Zephyrian culture. They descended through the station via a transport that moved without any visible mechanism, simply gliding through tubes of energy that carried them deeper into the structure. The vault they entered was enormous, filled with artifacts that seemed to defy the laws of physics as Maya understood them. Weapons that existed as pure energy until touched, art that existed in dimensions she couldn't perceive, and technologies that looked more like magic than science. These are relics from our golden age, Princess Kira explained, her tone now tinged with genuine pride rather than mockery. When my ancestors ruled not just the galaxy but neighboring realities as well. We have forgotten more about science and warfare than your species has ever learned. At the far end of the vault, on a pedestal surrounded by containment fields, stood a suit of armor unlike anything Maya had ever seen. It seemed to be made of the same living light as the station walls, but darker, more substantial. Ancient symbols flowed across its surface like liquid silver, and even inactive, it radiated a sense of immense power. And this, Princess Kira said, approaching the armor with obvious reverence, is the crown jewel of our collection. The Sentinel armor, worn by the greatest warrior in our history. My ancestor, General Zeth Zephys, used this armor to defend our empire from threats that would have destroyed entire star systems. Maya studied the armor with professional interest. Despite its alien design, she could see the practical elements. The way it would distribute weight and impact, the strategic placement of what appeared to be weapon systems, the advanced sensor arrays built into the helmet. It's beautiful, she said honestly, and clearly functional. Your ancestor must have been a formidable warrior. Princess Kira's expression shifted, a calculating look entering her violet eyes. You know, Captain, I find myself curious about something. Your species prides itself on its warriors despite your primitive technology. You fought wars across your entire planet, developed increasingly creative ways to destroy each other. Tell me, do you consider yourself a warrior? Maya sensed danger in the question but answered truthfully. I served in the Federation military for 12 years before transitioning to diplomatic service. I've seen combat, yes. Fascinating, Princess Kira mused, then smiled in a way that didn't reach her eyes. Then perhaps you would indulge my curiosity. The armor has been inactive for millennia, nothing more than a museum piece. Would you be interested in trying it on? I find myself wondering how our ancestors' finest creation would look on a human frame. Several of the other Zephyrians present made sounds that Maya suspected were suppressed laughter. She realized this was meant to be humiliating, a way of demonstrating human inadequacy by showing that their greatest warrior couldn't even activate ancient Zephyrian technology. Maya looked at the armor, then back at Princess Kira's expectant face. She could refuse and maintain her dignity, or she could accept the challenge and likely provide entertainment for beings who already saw her as primitive. But something about the armor called to her, a strange resonance she couldn't explain. I would be honored to try your ancestors' armor, Maya said formally. If you're certain it won't be damaged by human contact. Princess Kira waved dismissively. The armor is indestructible. Even if you somehow manage to activate it, which is impossible, it would simply shut down once it realized you weren't Zephyrian. She gestured to the containment field controls. Please, be my guest. The field deactivated with a soft chime, and Maya approached the armor. Up close, she could see the incredible craftsmanship in every detail. The symbols flowing across its surface seemed almost alive, and she could swear she felt a faint warmth radiating from the metal. She placed her hand on the chest piece, expecting to feel cold alien metal. Instead, the moment her skin made contact, the armor erupted in brilliant light. The symbols across its surface flared from silver to gold to blazing white, and Maya felt a surge of energy unlike anything she had ever experienced. The armor began to disassemble itself, pieces flowing like liquid to surround her body. Her Federation uniform dissolved away, replaced by an underlayer of the same living material. The armor pieces fitted themselves to her human frame with perfect precision, adapting and reshaping until it fit her as if it had been made specifically for her body. Princess Kira stepped backward in shock, her violet eyes wide with disbelief. The other Zephyrians began speaking rapidly in their own language, their voices filled with alarm and confusion. Maya felt knowledge flooding into her mind, information about technologies and concepts that human science hadn't even imagined. She understood now that the armor wasn't just protection, it was a living computer, a repository of knowledge from a civilization far older and more advanced than even the Zephyrians realized, and somehow impossibly it recognized her as worthy. The helmet formed around her head last, and through its sensors Maya could perceive the universe in ways that made her gasp. She could see the energy fields that held the station together, the quantum fluctuations in space-time, the life forces of every being in the vault. Most importantly, she could see something else, something that filled her with sudden terror. "Princess," Maya said, her voice now resonating with harmonic frequencies that the armor provided, "we need to evacuate this station immediately. Something is coming." Before Princess Kira could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the vault. Emergency lights bathed everything in red, and automated voices began announcing in multiple languages that the station was under attack by unknown hostiles. "Princess," Kira stared at Maya in confusion and growing fear. "This is impossible. The armor hasn't activated for anyone in 10,000 years. How are you?" "Explanations later," Maya interrupted, the armor's systems already analyzing the attacking ships and providing tactical information. "Right now, we have a station full of civilians and diplomatic personnel about to be overrun by something that shouldn't exist." Through the armor's enhanced senses, Maya could perceive the attacking force with terrifying clarity. Ships of dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Weapons that fired bursts of entropy that aged whatever they struck by centuries in seconds. And worst of all, boarding pods filled with creatures that fed on life energy itself. The Devourers had returned, and Maya was the only one who could stop them. The ancient truth revealed. The station shuddered as the first Devourer weapon struck its shields, and Maya felt the armor's systems automatically compensating for the gravitational fluctuations. Through the neural interface, information flowed into her consciousness like a waterfall of ancient knowledge. She saw the truth that the Zephyrians had forgotten, the real history that their own records had obscured. 10,000 years ago, the galaxy had been protected by an alliance of species known as the Guardians. They were not conquerors like the Zephyrians had become, but protectors who stood against the forces of entropy and destruction that emerged from the spaces between realities. The Sentinel armor had not been created by any single species, but by the combined knowledge of hundreds of worlds working together. "Princess Kira," Maya said, her voice carrying new authority as the armor's knowledge integrated with her own understanding. "Your people's records are incomplete. The Zephyrians were never the creators of this armor. You were part of something greater, something your empire has forgotten in its pursuit of dominance." Princess Kira's pale blue skin had gone almost white with shock. Around them, other Zephyrian dignitaries were backing away, some speaking frantically into communication devices, others simply staring in disbelief at the human who had activated their most sacred artifact. "That's impossible," Princess Kira whispered. "Our histories clearly state that General Zeth created the armor using pure Zephyrian science. No primitive species could have contributed to such advanced technology." Maya turned to face her, the armor's helmet retracting to reveal her human features, now somehow enhanced by the connection to the ancient systems. Her brown eyes held depths of knowledge that hadn't been there minutes before, and when she spoke, it was with the certainty of remembered truth rather than speculation. "The Guardians included your people, yes, but also the Christek Collective, the Voidwalkers, the Psychic, Synthesis, and dozens of other species that your empire either conquered or displaced. The armor was their combined masterpiece, designed to be worn by any worthy guardian regardless of species. And Earth, Princess. Earth was the original guardian homeworld." The station shook again, more violently this time, and Maya could sense through the armor systems that the attacking force was vast. Hundreds of Devourer ships, each one a dark mirror of the life-affirming technology that the Guardians had once championed. They fed on civilization itself, growing stronger with each world they consumed, each species they destroyed. "We need to reach the command center," Maya continued, the armor already providing tactical analysis of the station's defenses. "Your current weapons won't be effective against Devourer technology. They've evolved beyond what your people remember." Princess Kira straightened, some of her royal composure returning despite the impossible situation. "Even if what you're saying is true, even if my people have somehow forgotten our own history, you're still just one human in one suit of armor. The attacking force has enough ships to destroy this entire system." Maya smiled, and for a moment, Princess Kira could see not just the human diplomat who had boarded the station, but something far older and more dangerous. "I'm not just one human anymore, Princess. I'm the guardian this armor has been waiting for, and I carry the knowledge and power of every species that contributed to its creation. But you're right about one thing. I can't do this alone." They moved through the station corridors with Maya leading the way, the armor's sensors guiding them through the most efficient route while avoiding areas where the structure was weakening under the Devourer assault. Princess Kira found herself struggling to keep up with Maya's enhanced speed, her flowing robes hampering her movement. "Here," Maya said, stopping suddenly and touching a section of wall that looked identical to all the others. The armor's knowledge had revealed hidden passages throughout the station, emergency routes that the current Zephyrian inhabitants had forgotten existed. The wall dissolved at her touch, revealing a corridor that led directly toward the command center. As they moved through the hidden passage, Princess Kira found herself studying Maya with new eyes. The human woman had been transformed by the armor, not just physically, but mentally. She moved with perfect confidence through the alien environment, understood technology that the Zephyrians themselves had forgotten, and radiated a kind of power that was both protective and intimidating. "Maya," Princess Kira said, using the human's first name for the first time, "if what you're saying is true, if humans are really descendants of the Guardians, why didn't you develop these abilities naturally? Why has your species remained so primitive?" Maya paused, accessing memories that belonged to the armor itself. "Because we were hidden," she said quietly. "When the Devourers were finally defeated 10,000 years ago, the surviving Guardians scattered their offspring across the galaxy, suppressing their abilities and memories to keep them safe. Earth was chosen as a sanctuary because it was so far from the major space lanes, so unremarkable, that no one would think to look there for Guardian descendants." They reached the command center to find chaos. Zephyrian officers were frantically trying to coordinate defenses against an enemy they didn't understand, their advanced shields failing against weapons that seemed to bypass conventional physics. On the main display, Maya could see the Devourer fleet in all its terrifying glory. Ships that looked like they were made from crystallized darkness, moving in patterns that hurt to watch directly. "Report," Princess Kira commanded as they entered. Admiral Vex, the station commander, turned to them with obvious relief. "Your Highness, our weapons are having minimal effect. The enemy ships seem to absorb our energy blasts and use them to power their own systems. We've lost contact with the outer defense platforms and our shields are failing faster than we can reinforce them." Maya stepped forward, the armor interfacing with the station's systems without permission. Suddenly she was connected to every sensor, every weapon, every defensive system on the massive structure. The feeling was overwhelming at first, like trying to drink from a river. But the armor's conditioning helped her process the information flow. "Admiral, your weapons are failing because you're using them wrong," Maya said, her voice carrying harmonics that commanded attention. "The Devourers don't just feed on matter and energy. They feed on order itself. Every time you fire a conventional weapon at them, you're giving them exactly what they need to grow stronger. And I suppose you have a better solution?" Admiral Vex said skeptically, though his tone was more desperate than dismissive. Maya smiled and began to explain techniques that had been forgotten for millennia. The armor's knowledge showed her how Guardian technology had been designed not just to fight the Devourers but to reverse their entropy-based attacks. Where conventional weapons added energy to a system, Guardian weapons imposed structure, creating pockets of perfect order that the Devourers couldn't consume. As Maya worked to modify the station's defensive systems, Princess Kira found herself assigned to evacuation duties. It was a task that should have been beneath her royal status, but she threw herself into it with surprising dedication. She had begun to understand that everything she had believed about her people's superiority was being challenged, and she was determined to prove that Zephyrians could adapt when necessary. In the civilian quarters, Princess Kira encountered families with young children, elderly scholars, diplomatic staff from dozens of different species. All of them looked to her for leadership and reassurance, and she found herself drawing on reserves of strength she hadn't known she possessed. As she helped organize evacuation protocols, she began to understand something that Maya had tried to explain: that true strength came not from technological superiority, but from the willingness to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Meanwhile, Maya had successfully modified the first of the station's primary weapons, transforming it from a conventional energy cannon into something that could actually hurt the Devourers. When it fired, instead of a beam of destructive force, it projected a wave of crystallized order that struck a Devourer ship and caused it to simply cease existing, its entropy-based structure unable to maintain coherence against the imposed organization. Impossible, Admiral Vex breathed, staring at the display. That ship just vanished. Not vanished, Maya corrected, already working on the next weapon system. Returned to its proper state. The Devourers are artificial constructs, chaos, given form and purpose. When you force them back into order, they become what they originally were: nothing. As more of the station's weapons came online with Guardian modifications, the balance of the battle began to shift. The Devourer fleet, which had been steadily advancing despite the station's defenses, found themselves taking actual damage for the first time in millennia. Several of their ships began to retreat, their collective consciousness recognizing a threat they hadn't encountered since the original Guardian War. But Maya could sense through the armor that this was only the beginning. The force attacking. The station was just a scouting party, a fraction of the true Devourer fleet that was emerging from the spaces between realities. If they were to have any hope of stopping the invasion, they would need more than one Guardian and one modified station. Princess Kira returned to the command center leading a group of evacuated civilians, her flowing robes now practical work clothes, her silver hair pulled back in a functional style that mirrored Maya's military bearing. She had been changed by the experience of leadership under pressure, and Maya could see a strength in her that went beyond royal privilege. The civilian evacuation is complete, Princess Kira reported, then looked at the tactical display with new understanding. But this isn't really about saving this station, is it? This is about something much larger. Maya nodded, the armor showing her probability cascades that stretched across the galaxy. The Devourers are testing our defenses, learning how much we've forgotten about fighting them. This attack will be followed by others, each one larger than the last, until they're confident they can overwhelm us completely. Then what do we do? Princess Kira asked, and Maya noticed that she had said we rather than you. Maya smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the armor's systems. We remember what the Guardians learned 10,000 years ago, that no single species, no matter how advanced, can stand alone against entropy. We need allies, Princess. We need to rebuild the Guardian Alliance, starting with our two peoples. As if to underscore her point, the armor suddenly chimed with an incoming signal. On the display, a new fleet was approaching. Earth Federation. Ships primitive by Zephyrian standards but moving with purpose and determination. Maya felt a surge of pride as she recognized the lead ship. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Federation vessel Defiance," came a familiar voice over the communication channel. "We received your distress signal, Captain Rodriguez. Looks like you've gotten yourself into another interesting situation." Princess Kira stared at the approaching human fleet, her violet eyes wide. They came, despite knowing they were outgunned, despite having no reason to risk themselves for a Zephyrian station. They came. "That's what Guardians do," Maya said, softly. "We protect those who need protection, even when it's not logical, even when the odds are against us. It's not about superior technology or advanced evolution, Princess. It's about choosing to stand between the darkness and the light, no matter the cost. As the human fleet took position alongside the Zephyrian station, preparing to face the Devourer threat together, Maya felt the armor responding to something deeper than tactical necessity. The alliance that had been broken 10,000 years, Ego was beginning to reform, one choice at a time, one act of courage at a time. The real battle was just beginning. The Guardian's legacy, the combined human Zephyrian fleet, faced an enemy that defied conventional understanding of warfare. Through the armor's enhanced perception, Maya could see the Devourer mothership emerging from a tear in reality itself, its massive form seeming to exist in several dimensions simultaneously. It was less a spacecraft than a living embodiment of entropy, surrounded by smaller vessels that moved like antibodies protecting a dark organism. Fleet status report, Maya commanded, the armor interfacing with both human and Zephyrian communication systems simultaneously. She had become more than a single person now. She was the living link between two civilizations that needed to work together or face extinction. Captain Sarah Chen's voice came through the comm with typical human directness. All Federation, ships reporting ready, Maya. We've armed our missiles with the modification schematics you transmitted. Not sure I understand how they're supposed to work, but I trust your judgment. Admiral Vex, his initial skepticism replaced by grim determination, provided the Zephyrian report. Station weapons fully converted to Guardian protocols. Fleet elements standing by for coordinated assault. Your Highness, he added, addressing Princess Kira, the evacuation ships are clear of the combat zone. Princess Kira had taken position. At the tactical station, her royal robes replaced by practical military attire that Maya had designed using the armor's fabrication systems. The change was more than cosmetic. She had transformed from a privileged aristocrat into a war leader, and the armor's sensors detected the same qualities in her that had marked the original Guardians: courage, adaptability, and an absolute refusal to surrender in the face of overwhelming odds. Maya, Princess Kira said quietly, the mothership is larger than our combined fleet. Even with Guardian weapons, do we have enough firepower? Maya studied the tactical display, the armor, running probability calculations that painted a sobering picture. The Devourer mothership was not just a single vessel, but a collection of consumed realities, each one adding to its mass and power. Conventional military thinking would declare the situation hopeless. Not enough firepower, Maya agreed. But maybe enough understanding. The armor was showing her something that changed everything. The Devourers weren't just feeding on matter and energy, they were feeding on the concept of civilization itself. Every world they consumed, every species they destroyed, made them stronger not just physically, but conceptually. They grew more, real with each victory, while their opponents became less so. All ships, listen carefully, Maya broadcast to the combined fleet. We're not fighting enemy ships, we're fighting the idea of defeat itself. The Devourers become stronger every time. We act like victims every time we accept that they're more powerful than us. We need to change the fundamental nature of this engagement. Captain Chen's voice carried confusion but trust. What do you need us to do, Maya? Remember what you're fighting for, Maya replied, the armor helping her find words that carried more than just tactical meaning. Not just your own lives, not just your own worlds, but the right of consciousness to exist in an ordered universe. The Guardians didn't win their original war through superior weapons. They won by refusing to accept entropy as inevitable. As the human fleet moved into attack formation, Maya could sense something changing in the fundamental structure of the battle. The humans, despite their primitive technology, carried something that the Devourers couldn't consume. Hope backed by absolute stubbornness. They didn't fight because they expected to win. They fought because the alternative was unacceptable. The Zephyrian ships, inspired by their human allies' determination, began to remember something their species had forgotten during millennia of easy conquest. They rediscovered the courage that had made them guardians in the first place, the willingness to sacrifice for something greater than themselves. Princess Kira, monitoring the fleet communications, turned to Maya with wonder in her violet eyes. The quantum resonance patterns are changing. Both fleets are generating coherence fields that shouldn't be possible with our technology. Maya nodded, feeling the armor responding to the collective will of the Allied forces. That's the real Guardian secret, Kira. The armor, the weapons, the advanced technology, none of that was what defeated the Devourers originally. It was the refusal to accept defeat, the choice to impose order on chaos through sheer force of will. The first exchange of fire began as the Devourer fleet launched waves of entropy weapons that aged space itself, creating holes in reality where their attacks struck. But the Guardian-modified weapons of the Allied fleet responded with something unprecedented, beams of crystallized possibility that didn't just destroy their targets but transformed them back into what they had been before the Devourers consumed them. Maya watched in amazement as destroyed worlds flickered back into existence for brief moments where the Guardian weapons struck, as if the universe itself was remembering what had been lost. The Devourers, for the first time in millennia, began to show something that might have been fear. "The mothership is moving," Admiral Vex reported. "It's targeting the station directly." Through the armor's sensors, Maya could see the massive entity focusing its attention on her specifically. The Devourers had recognized what she represented, not just a single Guardian, but the renewal of everything they had thought they had, destroyed forever. "Maya," Princess Kira said urgently, "the mothership's weapons are unlike anything in the tactical database. If it fires at full power—" Maya was already moving, the armor carrying her through the station's corridors at impossible speed. She had realized what she needed to do, though the knowledge came with a terrible price. The armor wasn't just a weapon or a tool. It was a repository of Guardian consciousness, containing the stored personalities and memories of every warrior who had worn it. To unlock its full power, she would have to merge completely with that collective consciousness, potentially losing her individual humanity in the process. She reached the station's primary power core just as the Devourer mothership began to charge its ultimate weapon. Through the armor's connection, she could feel Princess Kira following her, the Zephyrian woman's presence providing an anchor to her individual self that she desperately needed. "Maya, what are you doing?" Princess Kira demanded as Maya began, interfacing directly with the power core. "Something that should have been done 10,000 years ago," Maya replied, her consciousness already beginning to expand beyond individual boundaries. The Guardians didn't really defeat the Devourers in the original war. They just scattered them, sent them back to the spaces between realities. But entropy always returns unless it's replaced with something stronger. Maya felt her awareness, spreading through the station, then through the Allied fleet, then beyond into the quantum structure of space itself. She could perceive every ship, every person, every thought and hope and fear in the combined force. More importantly, she could feel the connections between them, the bonds that made them more than just individual units. Princess Kira grabbed Maya's armored hand, her touch somehow penetrating the armor's systems to reach the human consciousness within. "Don't lose yourself in there, Maya. We still need you to be you." The Devourer mothership fired, and reality itself seemed to scream as the entropy beam struck the station. But instead of aging and decay, the weapon encountered something it couldn't process. A field of pure creation energy generated by Maya's connection to every conscious being in the Allied force. The beam didn't just stop, it reversed. The entropy that had been meant to destroy became order that spread outward like a wave, striking the Devourer fleet and transforming it back into what it had been before eons of consumption had corrupted it. Ships became worlds, weapons became gardens, the endless hunger became satisfaction. The mothership itself underwent the most dramatic transformation. As the wave of order reached it, the massive entity began to dissolve, but not into destruction. Instead, it revealed what it had always been beneath the accumulated entropy. A collection of civilizations that had been consumed but never truly destroyed, waiting for someone to remember them back into existence. Maya felt herself fragmenting. Under the strain of channeling so much creative force, her individual consciousness threatening to dissolve into the collective Guardian awareness stored in the armor. But Princess Kira's hand on hers provided a lifeline, a connection to her specific identity that allowed her to maintain coherence, even as she transformed the fundamental nature of the battle. "Stay with me, Maya," Princess Kira whispered, her voice somehow carrying across dimensions of space and consciousness. "The galaxy needs its guardian, but I need my friend." The word friend resonated through the armor's systems like a bell, and Maya felt herself solidifying back into individual awareness. The wave of creation energy she had generated continued to spread outward, but now she could control it, shape it, direct it toward healing rather than just transformation. When the light finally faded, the space around the station held not a devourer fleet, but a collection of restored worlds, their populations blinking in confusion as they found themselves alive again after millennia of entropy. The mothership had become a garden world of impossible beauty, its surface covered with cities that represented the architectural styles of hundreds of species. Maya collapsed to her knees, the armor's systems powering down to sustainable levels. Princess Kira knelt beside her, supporting her as the helmet retracted to reveal a human face that was both familiar and transformed. Maya's brown eyes now held depths that spoke of connection to something vast and eternal, but they were still recognizably her own. "Is it over?" Princess Kira asked. Maya smiled, feeling exhaustion and triumph in equal measure. "This battle is over. The devourers that existed have been restored to what they originally were. But there will always be entropy, Kira. There will always be forces that want to tear down what we build up. That's why the galaxy needs guardians." Around them, the station's communication systems came alive with reports from the Allied fleet. The human ships were requesting orders, the Zephyrian vessels were asking for clarification of their new status, and the newly restored worlds were seeking guidance about their place in the current galaxy. "What do we tell them?" Princess Kira asked, looking out at the transformed fleet through the viewports. Maya stood slowly, the armor adjusting to support her still recovering body. She looked out at the transformed space around them, seeing not just restored worlds but the beginning of something that had been lost for 10 millennia. "We tell them the truth," Maya said, her voice carrying new authority tempered with hard-won wisdom. "That the age of isolation is over, that humanity has remembered its guardian heritage, and that the Zephyrian Empire has rediscovered its true purpose as protectors rather than conquerors." Princess Kira moved to stand beside her, their reflection in the viewport showing two figures who had been transformed by their shared experience. The princess's violet eyes held a new understanding of what true leadership meant, while Maya's enhanced perception allowed her to see the quantum threads that connected every conscious being in the galaxy. "The other guardian armor," Princess Kira said suddenly. "If humans are truly descended from the original guardians, there must be more suits waiting to be activated." Maya nodded, the armor's stored knowledge confirming what she had begun to suspect. Hidden on worlds throughout human space, waiting for the right time and the right people. Earth was never meant to be just a sanctuary, Kira. It was meant to be the seed from which the guardians would grow again when they were needed. Over the following weeks, as the newly restored civilizations integrated into galactic society and the human-Zephyrian alliance formalized into something unprecedented, Maya found herself changed in ways she was still discovering. The armor had become a permanent part of her, not just as equipment but as a connection to every guardian who had come before, and every one who would follow. Princess Kira, now bearing the title of Guardian Princess and leading the Zephyrian Reformation movement, worked tirelessly to rebuild her empire's relationship with the species they had conquered or ignored. The revelation that they had once been part of a greater alliance had shaken Zephyrian society to its core, but it had also awakened something that had been dormant for too long, the desire to be worthy of their ancestors' legacy. The day came when Maya stood on the observation deck of the newly christened Guardian Station, formerly the Zephyrian diplomatic outpost, where this had all begun. Ships from dozens of species moved in coordinated patterns around the structure, representing the first formal Guardian alliance in 10,000 years. Princess Kira joined her, now wearing armor of her own, not Guardian armor but something new, designed using the combined knowledge of human determination and Zephyrian technology. Together, they watched as the first group of human guardian candidates arrived from Earth, young men and women who had volunteered to undergo the trials that would determine if they could bond with the ancient armor. "Do you think they're ready?" Princess Kira asked, watching the transport ships dock. Maya smiled, remembering her own shock when the armor had first activated for her. "None of us are ever ready, Kira. That's what makes us human. We do what needs to be done whether we're ready or not." As the new candidates disembarked, Maya could see the future spreading out before them like a vast tapestry. The Devourers had been defeated, but entropy would always exist in new forms. The galaxy would need its guardians, and humanity would provide them, not because they were the most advanced species, but because they carried within themselves the stubborn refusal to accept defeat that had always been the true guardian strength. Princess Kira took her hand, their fingers intertwining in a gesture that had become both personal and symbolic of the alliance between their peoples. "What do you think our ancestors would say about all this?" Maya looked out at the stars, feeling the armor systems connecting her to every guardian across the galaxy, both past and future. "I think they'd say we finally figured out what they tried to teach us 10,000 years ago, that the universe belongs to those who refuse to let it fall into darkness." The Guardian Station's communication array came alive with signals from across the galaxy as more species requested to join the new alliance. The age of entropy was ending, and the age of hope was beginning. And at its heart stood a human woman in ancient armor and an alien princess who had learned that true royalty meant service to something greater than oneself. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, as if the universe itself approved of what they had accomplished. The Guardians had returned, and this time they would not fall to the darkness. They would stand together, human and alien alike, protecting the light of consciousness against whatever entropy might come. The future stretched out before them, full of challenges and wonders yet to be discovered. But Maya Rodriguez, captain of the Earth Federation, guardian of the galaxy, and friend to a princess who had become something far greater than royalty, faced it with confidence. They had learned the most important lesson of all, that hope, determination, and the refusal to surrender could triumph over any darkness. The galaxy was safe and the Guardians were home.